Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Moto, and if you want a motorcycle that you can ride legally on the streets and go explore just about any trail around the country, then the Kawasaki KLX230 is one of the most affordable ways to do it. And if you get this Sherpa S model, it's going to be a little bit lower and a little bit cooler than some of the other offerings. A lot of dual sport motorcycles are big. They're tall. They're tougher for people of average size or below, or I should say average skill or below, to go out and ride around. This one, though, remarkably low, remarkably accessible, and as long as you're not necessarily paying MSRP, decently affordable as well. For 2026, Kawasaki has added this Sherpa S as well as the DF editions of the KLX230 to their lineup. This one offering you switchable ABS, some cool kind of sand colored graphics, a little bit of extra protection both here and there, which I guess looks like we've kind of put to use a little bit of extra skid plate protection as well. 8.5 inches of ground clearance, still more than the KLE 500 in our garage, and only a 32.5 inch seat height, and that's before the relatively short suspension compresses down. So myself at 5'10", 32-inch inseam should have no problem riding this bike. And I don't have any problem riding this bike. We've done a number of videos already. We've got a comparison test with the Honda competitor, the XR150L. I don't want to spoil that one for you, but had a little bit of an eventful ending on that video. Yeah, and I've already ridden this bike around a good bit because despite its slightly steep $6,000 MSRP after destination, I still do like this bike. It still has a great little charm. So if we're going to use it as a kind of a daily rider type of bike, how is it going to do for you? Today, we're going to talk about that. In today's ride, we're going to head out and do about 43 miles of mixed riding. We're going to do some highway, even with this little 233cc inline one single-cylinder air-cooled motor. We're going to do some city. We're going to do a coast down PCH. We're going to talk about what it would be like to live with this bike on a daily ride. And that all begins with a cold start. This is a fuel-injected air-cooled motor, so that fires right to life. Very easy to do. I got a clock on here, which is kind of cool. Don't often get this type of bike. And if you're going to be riding this daily, having a clock is nice, although there's a decent chance you're just going to have your phone in front of you mounted. Whew, and it is already getting a little bit toasty here. So without any further ado, we're going to hit the road. This is such an easy motorcycle to ride. I'll definitely be hitting this theme throughout the video, but if you're somebody who has no ego and you simply just want to be out on two wheels anywhere and everywhere, this is a great little bike to do it on. This should also stand to be one of the more efficient bikes we've tested. It's fairly lightweight at about 300 pounds as you're seeing it here in California spec. Just that single cylinder, fuel injected engine, 17 horsepower, just over 13 pound-feet of torque. So when I come over here and fill up the little 2-gallon tank, I'm expecting somewhere around 60 miles per gallon. I'd be a little disappointed if we don't at least get that. Fairly low compression ratio engine, so no need to put premium fuel in here. It's going to be another part that saves you at the pump. Regular gasoline. Another one of the advantages of a fuel-injected bike is you have a fuel gauge. No need for guessing or swooshing or petcock or reserve or anything like that. When I hopped on the bike this morning, even though I hadn't ridden it in a few weeks, I knew that I should probably swing out and grab some fuel. But other than that and the clock, Trip A, Trip B, and Auto. No average fuel readout or anything like that. So we've got a Trip A reset to life, and we are rolling. A few other things to note for the test. A little bit toastier today. We're at about 78 degrees Fahrenheit, right about sea level here. Our tire pressures are set at their placard 22 PSI front and rear. The Sherpa model gets a little bit more of an aggressive, obviously DOT legal tire. It did pretty well for us running off-road, and it's just soft enough here on road that you don't really get too much noise or vibration. And we're gonna be riding as though you were just heading into the office or heading to class on a weekday morning. It's a Tuesday, it's 10:10 in the morning. I'm just, you know, I'm getting to where I need to go. This isn't gonna be a real ripper ride, so we're gonna be keeping it about 5 miles per hour within posted speed limits. Ooh, a little bit of tight through here. There we are. Now that being said, with this little engine, 17 horsepower, you are often giving it the full beans. But it gets up to speed just fine. No sort of gear indicator, so you are going to have to be counting gears. It's probably a good skill to learn if you're a newer rider. And the ergos are so nicely set up on this bike. Again, I'm fairly average size, 5'10", and I just have a nice, comfortable outreach to the bars. A little bit far out. I kind of like having my arms extended. It also makes it so when you stand up, you can pretty much get your full leg extension while still having your arms outstretched to reach in the bars. I wonder if they only put a 2-gallon fuel tank on here so that they could keep the as tested weights right about 300 pounds, because really, I mean, 3 gallons would go a lot further on this bike, and they could have made room for it. I mean, gosh, 2 gallons is just such a tiny tank. And I know this thing should be decently fuel efficient. If you're just putzing around off-road, that should get you pretty much all day's worth of riding, but still, I imagine most people who are purchasing and using this bike for real sort of riding are going to put some sort of aftermarket tank on there. I really like Kawasaki's 230 single. It just has character. Whether I know Kawasaki says, oh, it's too different in the W series, but it feels pretty similar in the W series. And I've ridden this street version, I've ridden the dirt versions. It's got a nice little putt sound to it. It's got just enough grunt down low to pull confidently. It's not one of those small CC bikes where I'm constantly full throttle. The Honda, I'm essentially full throttle or off, on off. It's almost like an on-off switch, whereas this one provides just enough power to feel kind of usable and flexible from the power perspective. These little handguards go a long way as well for not only protecting your hands when you're doing off-roading, but when you're on road like this, providing some wind protection. That little bit can go a long way in keeping your hands warm on those colder mornings. But I also have some good gloves to do that purpose as well. These are the Revit Dirt gloves. They almost match the bike. Kind of a nice, also sort of sand, dirt, earth tone going on. In fact, I've got my whole Revit suite of gear on today. We've got the off-track jackets, the boundless boots, and the Ortez jeans. So kind of a nice ADV setup here. I could probably go with a little bit more aggressive boot if I were really going off-road, but today's an on-road ride. Also got my Arai Contour X on, and it's in the bright green look, and that's matching my bright green Helite jacket. I don't know, I just felt like being visible. There's something about riding these small bikes. Sometimes I'd like to have a little bit of extra visibility out there. I don't care if I look a little bit like an eraser riding around on this bike. I'd rather people see me than not. It's a beautiful morning out here on PCH. Waves are rolling in nicely. Temperature's cooler by the water. An individual is walking down the side of the street. Hitchhiking. Wow, either that or just waving. Don't see too much of that anymore, but yeah, I can't say I blame him. Sometimes, you know, you gotta get places. You don't have a car. But I appreciate that the KLX230 still has enough power, even in top gear, to maintain speed at 60 miles per hour up hills like this. That's just enough of a difference compared to something like a sub 200cc bike, or even get down for the T-Dub, something like that, where it just doesn't quite have the guts to keep up to speed on roads like this. We'll see it more later in the video as well, but the KLX230 is such a nice entry into the full displacement bikes, where you really can use them on just about any American road here, even the freeways. It's legal, it's just powerful enough. Now, obviously, if you're some big 250-pound person, or you throw 2 people on here, a bunch of gear, or whatever, you're gonna have more trouble. But I don't think you get a 230 if that's the case anyway. I think you just step up to a larger motorcycle. This bike, especially in the S form, is geared and intended more for smaller riders. And I would say myself at 5'10", 165 pounds, not at the very tippy top, but near the upper top of what Kawasaki would intend for a rider on this bike. And I gotta say, I do really love the ergos. There's only one element of this bike that gets tiresome after about half an hour, and that is the seat. The seat on the Sherpa here is hard and flat. We noticed it after 4 hours of riding, going back and forth between this and the XR, that your little booty just gets sore sitting on the seat, especially with the way that your knees are kind of up and in. It's a very upright seating position, which places a lot of weight on the bones of your butt. So if you're somebody who doesn't have a lot of cushion, like myself, haven't been doing my squats recently, you just tend to sit right onto this harder plank seat. And if I were going to be using this motorcycle for all day sort of riding or daily sort of riding, I might put a little extra cushion on there in the seat from the aftermarket. But coming into Laguna Beach here, perfect opportunity to talk about this little engine. Like I said, very quiet, very refined. I see this motorcycle being used a lot by people throwing it on the back of a camper, RV, something like that. And if you're running it around campsites or in smooth, serene forest environments, you are really going to appreciate the quiet, refined nature of this little air-cooled four-stroke. Sure, it's no electric bike, but as gasoline engines go, it's hard to get much more subtle than this little motor. I've been taken off from second gear from a lot of these lights, so anything that has kind of a decline like this, and just release in second, and we have enough of that grunt down low to just gently pull the bike away. This grunty little motor also makes for a great little city bike because you don't really have to be too concerned with what gear you're in. It's got enough torque and the bike's light enough that if you're up in a higher gear and you need to pull away, you still got some twist. And if you are revving it out a little bit, the motor's happy to do that. For being such a small displacement engine, it's got a good amount of bandwidth. And we have a 6-speed gearbox on here rather than something like a 5, so you can still have some flexibility, and the gearing is pretty much always in the right spot. Everything about this motorcycle lends itself to local kind of tight city putzing like this. First of all, the engine, which we talked about, flexible gearbox, but then also the low seat height. So if I'm kind of riding around here and something happens, I need to put a foot down real quick. Very easy to do so for any sort of rider. But then also, unlike something like a little street-oriented bike, we've got enough suspension, ground clearance, give, everything, and the proper tires to address any sort of road imperfections, potholes, speed bumps, anything like that. You can kind of do most of your riding around here in third if you want to. Then again, you hit little things like this. Woo! The bike just happy-go-lucky putzes around. Well, 3rd Street Hill we will not be doing in third. Let's see how we do. No sort of traction control or wheelie control, anything like that. But we can tractor right on up. No problemo. Pretty light clutch pull with being such a small engine. No slipper or assist clutch, so if you are aiming for this bike as more of a newer rider, it's not going to be quite as simple and easy and beginner oriented as something like a Z500, but it's going to be a lot cheaper if and when you lay it down. It's going to be a lot more versatile if you want to take it off-road, and going to be a little bit more of a forgiving riding and kind of ergo experience. Although it's really hard to go wrong as a Z500 too. It's such a carefree bike. If you have this as maybe a little motorcycle chilling out at a spare home or just kind of a ride casual sort of bike, it's just so fun and carefree to just hop on, and don't really care how fast I'm going. I'm looking around, I'm upright, I'm comfortable. Bike's just happy to be here. I'm happy to be here. And I'm also happy to be coming up to the spirited riding section. Maybe you got a set of twisty roads or on-ramps or something in your commute and you want to open it up a little bit. Let's see what we can do with all 17 horsepower out of this 233 single. firing out of the gate. Still accelerating up past 60. Good amount of peg height, so you don't really have to worry much about scraping. Obviously, we don't have street-oriented tires on here, so not going to push those too hard. We are starting to lose speed a little bit now. But they do make a 230 Supermoto, and you can see that DNA in here. Come on, Bronco, you're a Bronco Raptor. Either that or you're just an ugly... Yeah, I know, you're just an ugly Bronco, aren't you? Get going, dog. Anyway, you can feel that DNA and that usability here, even in the dual sport model of the 230. So, plenty fun still to throw around, even with these more dirt-oriented tires. If you live in an area where it's legal to do so, the 230 makes for a great little lane filtering machine. Can kind of scoot in and out of traffic. It's kind of right about the height of mirrors, but the handlebars aren't quite as wide as some other sort of dual sport and adventure bikes, so you gotta be a little careful, but overall makes for a nice little bike for that. Just another one of the ways that this is a great little city machine, despite seeming like something that belongs out in the dirt. Coming into the end of our city riding portion here in the KLX230, it is remarkable how good of a little city rider this bike makes. Again, you got nice upright seating position, you're looking around you, you're seeing things, but at the same time, you got a nice low seat height, so I'm firmly planted on the ground. I can throw the bike around with its fairly light weight. It's grunty, so I can zip in and out of traffic. Suspension takes any sort of public road imperfections perfectly. I mean, it's pretty good. And then you also have to consider the fact that with it being so thin and cheap and simple, if you have any sort of situations where you bump into something, something bumps into you, you drop it, you know, static or anything like that, this bike's gonna be totally fine. I mean, you can drop this on its side and it's gonna pop right up with nothing wrong with it. Try doing that to your Ninja 500. You're gonna have a $500 bill just in plastics to clean up if you drop it. So, it's kind of cool how good of a little city bike this thing is. But now we get onto the quicker suburban streets and then up onto the freeway. So, can this bike hang? Obviously, you're dealing with a little bit more wind, no sort of windscreen. If you have a nicer helmet like this one, you're going to appreciate the clean air because it's actually quieter than if you had a little bit of a windscreen that were funneling dirty, turbulent air right at your windshield. So I actually have no problem being nice and clean air on me right here. Now, if it were cooler outside, that would be a little bit chilly for sure, but on a day like today, it feels good up at 55 miles per hour. Again, no problem keeping up with traffic, even with some elevation. Very chill. This should be a good test right here, coming uphill on a 50 mile an hour road. A bunch of uppity Orange County traffic around us. What's with all the Broncos we're seeing today? Also a little lane filter test. Okay. That's Rivian's keeping up with us on the right, but other than that, perfectly up to speed, no problem. Definitely don't feel like I'm in the way, like you would be on a little Grom or Z125 or something like that. Just fine on the 55 mile an hour roads, and now we come to the freeway. Yes, this motorcycle is entirely legal on, I would think, every United States highway, being 233 cc's, and you can see the lane filtering right here, perfectly legal. Now, there is one big downside to running highway on this bike, and that is it's limited to an indicated 74 miles per hour, which I imagine is about 70 on the GPS. Now, from what I understand, that is because of Euro 5 regulations, something to do with maximum engine speed. I don't know exactly what the details are. Maybe somebody can let me know in the comments. But either way, at least on the bike here that I'm riding, you will see we will get up to 74 indicated fairly easily and quickly, especially with my lightweight, nothing on the bike or anything. But then we're going to hit a wall, and that is the speed limiter. And that is disappointing because this bike would be easily capable of, I don't know, 80 or so. Should allow me to keep up with traffic a little bit better. But either way, let's go. Now for this test, we are going to try to keep it around 70 miles per hour. But let me just show you at least real quick what happens when you hit... Oh, yeah, there we go. 74, 75 or so. I'm hitting that rev cut. So I don't know if there is a way to change that in the ECU or anything. Or, I mean, you can obviously just change gearing. That should get you a little bit more top end. But either way, this is the 5 freeway here in Orange County, California. And I am keeping up with traffic just fine. And being a fairly small engine, the vibrations are not too bad. Now you're certainly listening to this engine sing out, but it's really not any worse than the 300s that I've ridden at these highway speeds as well. Now, the only things you're going to have to consider is if we had any sort of incline, any sort of strong headwind. I mean, this is me at full throttle. We're just barely accelerating. So you certainly wouldn't want to be in a situation where you've got a lot of traffic bottling up behind you and you don't have a way to get out of the way. Especially if, again, you're running around Denver or something like that with elevation and altitude. But here around sea level, fairly flat highway, no problem chilling up here. And like I said, tons of clean air hitting me, so I'm getting pushed back a little bit, but I can sort of scoop my seat back, push my chest forward, ride along just fine. And why this is particularly meaningful to me is if you are going to use the KLX230 as a daily rider, there are situations where you might just want to hop on the highway, get somewhere, and get back off. There are plenty of environments around here where that could save you 15 minutes to just be able to do a few minutes on the highway. That was a mouse. Wow. Anyway, so to be able to at least legally and safely hop on the highway for a little bit and then get back off is huge. Here's what I'm talking about. We are falling down now to 69, 68 indicated. We got a headwind. I'm the only one here now. No more drafting. And we're coming up to a hill. So fully pinned. What are we going to fall to? 66, 65. I'm actually going to downshift. So just something to keep in mind as soon as you start running into some hills and wind, where the 230 is going to start huffing and puffing. Drafting makes a huge difference though, so if you can at least get behind some other vehicles, get a little bit of that airflow broken up, then you really are able to stay up speed, no problem. So, would I use the KLX230 for regular daily highway commutes? No. Would I use it for a long road trip on the highway? No. But the moral is you can do it, it's fine, it's legal, it's just about as safe as most other dual sports are going to be on the highway. That's the biggest point, is that stepping up to at least kind of this engine size, you can do it. And that's kind of the moral of this bike, is you can do just about everything on this little machine that you could on a more powerful dual sport, on a larger street bike. It's a master of none, jack of all. Would I use it as a little daily commuter? Yeah, it's great. It's got the, well, this one doesn't have the rack built on, the DS does, but you can easily get the rack for it. It's comfortable, it's easy, lightweight, and as we're gonna find out here in a moment, probably remarkably efficient. The only thing that gets tough for me with the KLX230, and this came up in our video with the XR as well, is just the price. It's just over $6,000 for this after destination. It's getting a little tough of an argument for a motorcycle with this little power. Now, like I said, you've got ABS, you've got a clock, you've got usability and suspension travel and cool looks and LED lights, and it's not egregious by any means. I understand where the price is coming from. However, I do think there's a very legitimate reason why it's so easy to find these bikes so gosh darn discounted on the secondhand market. I mean, there's a dealership right now near us here, Orange County, California, that has, I think, a 2023 KLX 230S marked at something like $2,900 with only a few thousand miles on it. I mean, this is going to be a dead reliable engine, super easy to maintain. And if you can get it at that price, holy cow, that's a whole different argument. As it sits right here, I do like the Sherpa. Would I buy it as a daily rider at $6,000? It's a little tough to say, but I do definitely think there's an argument to be made. And as a second bike in the garage, I love it. I love having this as a second bike. But let's get some fuel in here, see what our final numbers are. 42.9 miles traveled divided by the 0.649 gallons of fuel going in here is giving us a grand total of 66 miles per gallon for the Kawasaki KLX230. And for a bike that was running right up there at 70 miles per hour on the highway, that is a fantastic number. In fact, that might be the best number we've gotten. I can't think of any bikes that have done better than that. No, maybe the W230. Let me see. Moto W230. That one got 64, so this one beating it by 2 miles per gallon. Obviously within about a margin of error right there in terms of the fill and the route and everything. But still, pretty darn impressive number. What did the XR get? Okay, so the XR got 76 MPG, but to be fair, that bike couldn't travel as quickly on the highway as this one was going, so I'm sure we had a higher average speed. But you do only have the 2-gallon fuel sink, so 66 miles per gallon times 2 is only giving you 130 miles of real-world daily usable range on this KLX 230. So you might be having to hit the fuel station a little bit more often. Like I said, I bet you a lot of people are just going to be throwing an aftermarket tank on here, get a little bit of extra range. But as you're getting this bike from the showroom floor, it looks cool, it's easy to ride, it's fun to ride, and it's fuel efficient. So maybe if you can get yourself a little bit of a deal, this is a great bike to have. Also a fantastic little second bike in the garage. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the KLX230 Sherpa S, check the link below. We've got the full review coming, so stay subscribed for that. And then we got the comparison with the XR as well. I also had some of the older ones, both trail editions and the dual sports. Check the link below for those as well. And we will see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from DM Moto, and as always, ride on.